Hi guys, it's Elizabeth, and I wanted to make a quick video talking about the Fauxdori or the Traveler's Notebook that you'll find many people are using on YouTube. It's basically styled on the Midori style Traveler's Journal, and what's great about them is that they are refillable and reusable. So I made this one for a trip to Sri Lanka. I'll post a link to the video down below talking about how I made this particular one. And I wanted to give you a quick update on how it worked out. I loved using it. In the video, you'll notice that one of the reasons I went with that, with the Traveler's Notebook, is the fact that it's refillable. So instead of carrying really thick journals for the trip, so for example, if I had bound all the signatures into one book for the trip I had taken, that's how thick the journal would have been that I was schlepping around. And that just becomes heavy and unwieldy when you're on the road a lot. So by separating them out into booklets or signatures, all you're really carrying is just one of those, which is very nice and convenient. Now, I realize I haven't made a video updating kind of how this journal worked for me in terms of doing a full page-by-page flip, and I'll do that soon. But one of the things I realized after the trip was done, so it was a month-long trip, it held up really well, surprisingly well actually, and as you can see, everything came out pretty well, was the fact that I had used a hardcover book that I had gotten from the library, a library sale, and you'll see that the spine right up in the top basically got compressed in, and I think it either was luggage related or just the elastic band was pulling in the top. The bottom held up pretty well, but the top didn't have enough firmness and structure. So that was one of the things I wanted to fix with the next rev of my traveler's journals. So this time around, what I decided to do was actually use the cover from a journal that I had used several years ago. So what it's kind of a faux leather with some, embossed plants and flowers on it. And what I wanted to do was use that cover. So what I did was first, as you can see in here, I just took out all the journal pages that were inside that, just basically cut it out. And then to solve the problem of making sure my spine was going to be firm enough, based on the last journal I just showed you, I wasn't confident of that. All I did was take a piece of cardboard and cut it to the same length and width of that particular spine for this book, and I just glued it in using just your Elmer's PVA glue. And the one you can just pick up at any store. It held up pretty well in terms of just sticking down. Now, the cardboard I used is nothing special. I just used the back of one of the back cardboard that comes with pads of paper. So stuck it on, and then I went ahead and did the same elastic enclosure that you have come to see with the Midori or Traveler's Journals. Now, what I ended up using again is this elastic cord. It's 2 millimeters, if you can see that. And I picked it up from, I believe it was Michael's, for about $2 for about 5 yards. So this is my second journal using this, and I think there's enough cord left over for one more. So all I did was, once I had taken the inside stack of pages out of it, I pasted down end papers. Now the paper you see here is some paper I had picked up on a trip that we had taken to Venice several years ago. One of the great things about when you're traveling is finding paper stores, because they have, some great pieces that become great memories of trips that you've taken before. So I just again pasted that down using just your straight Elmer's glue. And one of the things I noticed is, because this is just paste paper, it's really thin. And I haven't decided yet whether I want to coat the inside with Mod Podge or Collage Podge or anything like that to kind of seal it. So in the meantime, what I noticed was that at the edges it was starting to fray a little right along that seam of the spine, just because the paper itself is so thin. So what I did was, you can see, I think you can see there's a little bit of shine to that. I added just some basic clear masking tape to help protect those edges. And I figure I'll decide what I'm going to do and see how, first of all, this paper holds up. And if it needs to have a coating, I will certainly do that. So the binding itself using the elastic cord is really simple. I'll post a link down below to, I believe it's Dark Child, whose video tutorial is what I use to make my Sri Lanka journal as well. It essentially is really simple. You're going to make 3 holes in the bottom, 3 holes on the top, 1 hole in the middle, and then you basically thread this elastic cord through, and with that end you come up with a closure that basically closes it up. Okay, so what's going to go in there? I have a trip coming up for Thanksgiving. I'm heading to visit my brother and his family in Las Vegas, and so what I did was very similar to the Sri Lanka journals, or the Sri Lanka journal that I took with me. I decided to make some booklets or pamphlets, single signature pamphlets, right? Same idea. And so this is the one that I've made for the Las Vegas trip. As you can tell, I've started putting some, ephemera and dates and stuff in there. But essentially it has got some writing paper, watercolor paper, some art paper from Strathmore, some, basic kinds of paper that I have lying around. And you'll see nothing special, very simple to do. Just one of the things you'll notice in my journals, and you'll see them in all of them, is I tend to have, especially the travel journals, I tend to have these clear pockets. And the way I make this is the same I make them for all my journals, is I take a page protector, 8.5 by 11 page protector. I cut off where the holes are, and then what that leaves me with is this seam that's wide open. Sometimes I stitch it up. In this particular case, I just use some washi tape and just seal that particular edge, so it leaves just the pocket open on the top. Okay. One of the things you'll notice here is I made some circles with the date, kind of using a stencil, and I plan on using that throughout the trip. So let's see. So that was there. And then I'm just going to do a quick flip so you can see, just I've got some blank pages, and the second half of the book just mirrors the first half. And there you go, right? So that's something that I'm going to plan on filling in Las Vegas next week. Now, just in case I need one, because that's the great thing about this, you can use as little or as much as you want, I decided to make another signature. Same idea, just, same kinds of paper, sometimes just a little bit different in terms of the scrap paper that I used. But, while you've got your supplies out, you might as well make multiple booklets or single signature pamphlets, because it doesn't take any more work to do that. And so here's another one that I have ready to go. Might or might not use this in the upcoming trip, but I certainly will end up using it this year. Now, the thing about creating your own pads of paper like that, or your own booklets, is the fact that you can add different kinds of paper. So for example, when I'm traveling, I really like having some writing paper and some watercolor paper. It tends to be hard to find books that come pre-made. Either they're all watercolor or they're all drawing paper and not good for wet media. So this way you can kind of make them exactly how you want your pamphlets to look like. So the way this works is, again, just like with all the traveler's journals, this particular one has got 3 strings that run down the middle, so I can put 3 booklets or 3 single pamphlet signatures into it. You can add more using rubber bands, but I don't tend to do that. So the way it works is, for example, here's my first signature. You open it up to the middle. I find the leftmost piece of elastic, and I just snick it in. Right? So it holds on like that. Then with the second signature that I have, again, I look for the middle. I go to the last one of these elastic bands and slide that one in. So there you go. They both hold like that. Now, one of the things I tend to do is in these signatures, they tend to be more collages and sketches and, notes that I tend to share. But I also like keeping kind of a morning pages journal when I'm traveling, and that just basically has a mind dump in the morning about just various things that are going on, which tend to be more private. So what I tend to do with that is I tend to have a different book that I do that kind of writing in. So in this particular case, this is just a single signature book with grid paper. You see that? Yep. Just stapled. And I picked it up somewhere. I think it came in a package from Michael's. And so I tend to just, keep notes in it as I go along. So this one's going to go in the center just to kind of even things out a bit. All right, so there you go. There's the first one, there's the second one, there's the third one. And the way this comes together is it just folds up, the elastic goes around, and there you have it. Okay, now it's a nice thin book in terms of carrying it around. I mean, compare and contrast to something, my Sri Lanka one, for example, right? Big difference between those two. But again, at any given point, you can choose how many or how few of these booklets you want to have inside. Whether you make them by yourself or you pre-buy them, either one will work. Now, again, if you decide to pre-buy your booklets, the ones that go on the inside, and you want to make the cover, just know that you have to make it to match the booklets you have on the inside. I tend to like this particular size, so it's about 9 inches tall by about 6 inches wide. So my watercolor paper tends to be my usual 9 by 12 inches folded in half. That's kind of what the watercolor size is in this book. Now again, one of the things I could have done is just, bound up this book. Instead of having it be refillable, I could have just created the signatures and bind them directly into this cover. And then that would have worked really well as well. But what I wanted to do was actually, I like this cover so much, I wanted to use it again. And if you bind it up once, then it goes into cold storage once the journal is full. This way, I can actually keep refilling as I go along. So that's what I have for a trip that's coming up in the next couple of days. I'll keep you posted in terms of how things go with this one compared to the last one. And stay tuned I'll probably make a quick video after my trip as well to show you the supplies that I took along with me. I'm planning on some very basic supplies. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and I will answer them as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching, and talk to you soon.